You know, we hadn't spoken a while about COVID-19, the pandemic, the virus, and whatever you want to call it. And as the state and the country opens up and we open up locally some of the businesses, let's don't forget that there are people who are still unemployed, people who are still laid off, who are furloughed, who are suffering financially as a result of the decisions made to lessen or mitigate the impact of this on the rest of society. I had the opportunity yesterday to meet quite a few folks over in Fleming Island who fall into that category of people who are furloughed, and they're doing things recreationally to just pass the time and not be in the house all the time, but they're still sitting there not generating an income. You know, there's a lot of things that I've read and done since this pandemic has come to bear, and I was sent an email by a young man from the American Legion, and in that it talks about an encounter with someone who was essentially schooled by an 80 plus year old. And in being schooled by an 80 plus year old, this individual reflected on the way society in this country was operating back during the Depression, during World War II, and the sacrifices that were made. And essentially, he said, I wish we live in a society that didn't have a bunch of sissies in it. He said sissies, not my words. And what he was saying was the sacrifices that they made then and the struggles that they had back then, they had things like polio, highly contagious, tuberculosis, highly contagious, measles, highly contagious, but schools didn't get shut down. Jobs didn't get closed. All the things that we're using as responses to mitigate the pandemic were not things that they did. Our forefathers in the golden era, they didn't do those things. And in this email, it said, it wouldn't be unusual to walk down the street and see where a house was quarantined as a result of somebody in there having some highly contagious disease, but they didn't shut schools down. There was a struggle going on because there was a war going on, and food and things were kind of sparse to come by if you weren't one of the upper echelon in society. And bread was metered out, and milk and cheese and things like just essentials were measured out. You weren't able to go in and deplete a store of its contents like we do now. And in this response, the person who was writing the email said, he asked a question to this 80 plus year old. He says, is there anything that I could do for you? And the gentleman said, as he ended with his commentary about how things were, he said, no, is there anything I can do for you? Can I give you some more pop? He called it pop, soda, a soft drink, if you will, to add to your cup because I see it's getting low. Is 113 channels on your cable? Is that enough, or should I find a way to get you more? He was being sarcastic. I could tell by reading this email. And some of the things that he said, he talked about during war when a man or a woman was sent off to war, and we're reflecting about things because we're coming up on Memorial Day. When he talked about this war, he said, we didn't have the media there to cover the war. We didn't have cell phones or Skype abilities or abilities to have some of the technology that we have today to communicate with those who are serving the country. You waited on a letter in return for communication with an individual who was off to war. And sometimes letters would get to a house the same time the death notification came to a house. But these are the things that we take for granted in society. And, I kind of side up with this 80 plus year old who's, whether he's fictitious or real in this email, we do have a society that's kind of softened down, and we're looking for handouts sometimes from the government. How about we do the things that we know to do best? How about we love on each other? How about we be good neighbors? Stop being mean spirited about everything and stop taking everything so personally all the doggone time. And this is just me talking as a guy. Yeah, I'm your sheriff, but this is just me talking as a guy. And you know what? I am a guy. And underneath this uniform is a man. I'm a man when I put the uniform off. I'm a man when I take it off. And there are so many men and women who feel the same way. We serve society. I just happen to serve as law enforcement. But think about the other folks who are out there as essential folks during this pandemic who are out there. And you know what? Like the guy said in the email, we didn't wear masks. We didn't have hand gel, and we persevered. And these things are things of the past. Think about polio. Think about measles. Think about that stuff is pretty much gone and eradicated. Life continues. Live your life. Live your life. If you're looking at this and you're stuck in the walls, you know what? Let the day be the day you go outside and do something fun. Whether you enjoy it with your family, your friends, or do it just by yourself, just go have a good time. Live your life. Don't be stuck under the umbrella of pandemic. And I'm not trying to water it down, but none of us, not me, not you, have been in these shoes before. And we're trying to use our better judgment to do what's good for the greater good. But as it comes to pertains to our individual families and our friends, live your life. Have a good time. Be safe. And remember, there are folks out there trying to keep you safe. And those men and women wear uniforms, and sometimes they don't. But you got folks like the Clay County Sheriff's Office employees who are doing it behind the scenes, and folks in other jurisdictions who are doing it behind the scenes to make sure that you can enjoy life. So why don't you do just that? Go enjoy life. Thank you.